sexy Dexter fans, and welcome to my 8th review of the 8th season of Dexter. Are we there yet? So I don't even want to talk about the fact that we're already 8 episodes into this business. I literally, it doesn't feel real to me. Because as of the season halfway mark, I felt like we passed over into a totally different season, so it's really hard for me to grasp, that the end is, in fact, as near as it actually is, so I don't even want to. I'll get a freaking counselor and she'll squeeze it out of me, but right now, I'm just going to live in the ignorant bliss, as not exactly as ignorant as I wish it was, but I will just block it out because I don't want to think, especially in the midst of everything that's going on, that we are already closing in on the kill. The ultimate kill that is going to be the giant knife stab that's gonna be freaking shish kebab through all of us, okay? Here's all of us fans, here's the end of the show, and just like that. Just like that. So, spoiler alert, as we go forward, I will bear all in this review about the episode itself, and I'm going to try and save my discussion of the little quick 30-second promo towards the very end of this video. But at the same time, I know that it's going to be very difficult for me to not say anything. So I just want to warn you guys, I'm gonna try really hard to save that, but I'm bursting at the seams here, okay? So I'll do what I can, but promises cannot be made, and I hope and pray that you will forgive me and still love me in return for my cruelty to you. Okay, so let me break this episode down for you real quickly, and then we get to the nitty-gritty, okay? Did I like this episode? That is a very intriguing question. I know that a lot of people did, and there were some very interesting and quirky and WTF things about it that were kind of hilarious, but in a, I don't know. This episode was very strange. There's a lot of humorous moments, or at least I made them humorous because I was kind of trying to distract me from, I was trying to distract myself from other pains that I was experiencing in my soul. So, we have the whole freaking murder family buffet over at Grandma Vogel's, okay? So, we got Vogel at the head of the table, and am I the only one who noticed all the freaking, cannibalism references that she made? Okay, because freaking, look at, NBC Hannibal, right? There's an episode where Dr. Lecter is hosting a dinner party, and he's like, well, just so you guys know, nothing here is vegetarian. And everyone's like, ho, 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 ho. And they have absolutely no idea as to the implications of that statement, and they just go, down the hatchet with somebody's face or some part. And and Vogel said the same thing. She's like, well, I hope none of you are vegetarians. It's like, okay, where did that come from? I've been drawing the Hannibal Vogel connections for a long time now, but that was just oh girl, you're letting your inner canny show, okay? Take some lessons from Lecter in the art of subtlety. But at the same time, she's definitely got her subtleties about her as well. And when she makes that comment to Hannah about how she loves a girl who can really eat, puts meat on the bones, a delicious Hannah McKay sandwich. I'm just saying, there was a lot of really weird things that were said, and just kind of the way the lighting came on her face. She had these weird shadows, and she was kind of looking sort of ghoulish over her, delicious dinner. And she was like, oh, there was too much red wine, and what was all that about? Is it just me, or is Vogel the freaking brain surgeon cannibal? So basically, she's she's the doctor, the operator. She gets, she picks her choice cuts. I mean, I would legitimately not be surprised. And I just let slip that I do believe that Vogel is the brain surgeon at this point, okay? Because she is the only one who we know of presently who is so entrenched in all the information that it would take for her to freaking, you know, situate Zach Hamilton at Dexter's apartment, and just, I mean, the whole thing was just so tight. And of course, you know, who was the last person to see Zach Hamilton when he was alive? It was Madame Vogel, just in case you didn't notice, and see his perky little puppy dog face. Say that 20 times fast. You know, as he's, like, seriously, I was calling him like a murder puppy. That was my nickname for him, you know, because he's just like ADHD, like everything. It's like he can't take in enough of the world, or rather he's taking in too much at once, to the point that he can't even so much as think straight, you know. He's just zigzagging his way around the world, like, oh, I couldn't figure out how to knock the guy out, so I kind of killed him in the process of the pre-killing, and I mean, it was just painful, but hilarious at the same time. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like a train wreck. You don't want to look, and yet you can't help but stare as you're driving down the street. I mean, it's just bad. So yeah, Vogel was the last one to see him. And you know, I had my suspicions pretty much from the beginning that she was our gal. And of course, the make your own kind of music, it's that musical theme returning again. And I mean, it was just all too perfect. So I'm glad that the actual brain surgeon case, you know, reemerged, and we're gonna have that fun kind of mystery to go as we progress. So are you guys bought on the theory that Vogel is she our lady? She the lady of the brain parts? Because I'm pretty dang sure that she is. Unless there's some crazy, even bigger reveal coming, but I sense that they're going to let us in more and more into her past, until the point where it's just like, all right, this is it. And so there's the dramatic irony of us just knowing full well who she is, and Dexter is gonna be, you know, dancing around the tulips with Hannah McKay until he finally wakes up, you know, on her freaking table, probably. I gotta say, I do love Vogel. I love the strange and bizarre and maternal and analytical. I mean, she's so many energies at once, and so rich and dynamic that I think that she's the only one who we could call the big bad here, because she is very rich villain material in my book. Okay, so I'm just putting that out there. At any rate, yeah, the plot line with Zach Hamilton, we could tell it was not sustainable merely from the fact that this kid, he can't control himself. You know, his appetite for violent expression, it far exceeds his ability to be reined in, to actually pre-plan, you know, as Dexter was once very well capable of. I say once because I can't say that Dexter is in the same place where we first found him. we really can't say that. He's not been thinking in the analytical kind of stark black and white way in which he used to. And that is something that I kind of mourn, to be honest with you, but I'll talk more about that later in the context of Hannah McKay and kind of what she symbolizes about the change in Dexter. But yeah, so I just kind of let myself be entertained by Zach because I had a strong sense that he was going places that would, you know, kind of more like Kingdom Come status than like, I'm gonna grab a hotel and peace out, you know. So yeah, that was a very interesting situation. You know, we see, of course, we knew that Deborah hotly pursuing Hannah was going to happen. You know, she had the tracking devices, she kind of roped Elway into it to get some support, you know, kind of raking him in with the money. And at the same time, you know, it was interesting because there's the whole Dexter, Hannah, Deborah dynamic that's going on, and that was kind of intermixed with the Zach thing, and it was just like the union of the murder family, you know, at the apartment, at dinner time. It was just, it felt like this weird kind of sitcom throughout, you know, that just sort of kept changing ever so slightly throughout the episode, which is what made it really weird for me. Because, yeah, so, like, as far as a sense of normalcy goes, I'm really clinging to what's happening with Deborah. She's the one with whom I empathize the most deeply. And so, you know, we see her reacting as we can only expect. You know, she's trying to protect Dexter from himself and trying to keep him in check, show him reality, because he is a little bit too far up in the clouds to be able to see what's really happening, at least in her eyes. And so, you know, she's hot on the case, and Elway kind of points out that she's pretty touchy emotional about this, you know, as she's like presenting the evidence. It all comes from a place of deep feeling, but that's the way that Deborah is, and that is consistent with how she's been pretty much her entire life. And so, you know, he kind of pokes at that flame and is like, you know, where is this coming from exactly? What is this going to bring about for you? How are you finding these things? You know, is it really necessary that you go after her, or does it all really come down to the vendetta? And for a while, you know, Deb was like, yeah, it kind of does come down to the vendetta, because this woman tried to kill me, and, you know, that just doesn't really fly. Anybody who messes with Deborah Morgan is, on my hit list, so just so you know, Hannah McKay, your enemies in the world, they are not few. But at any rate, so then of course we have the moment, you know, after Dexter's kind of flouncing around with Hannah, and they're sort of trying to figure out what to do with her, where she needs to go to be safe, and etc., etc. And also in that process, you know, Dexter's pursuing Zach. They find the apartment and the fruit of Zach's labors, of course. And then as Hannah is sticking behind to kind of clean up other things, while they're, you know, Dexter and Zach are going on the body dump. And all the car ride scenes were very entertaining to me as well. Again, it just felt very sitcom-y to me, because, you know, we have less of Dexter, his inner monologues. We have less of that voice and presence that really draws us into Dexter, and we're kind of estranged from him a little bit. I don't know if I was the only one who felt that way, but the less Dexter talks, the more strange I feel, and the more cavernous the silences feel, because I'm so used to hearing what's going on in his head, but it's the magical voodoo that is Miss McKay. And so during the scene where he and Hannah are going out to the Keys to find Zach and all that jazz, you know, I was expecting Harry to pop up in the back seat, but that didn't happen until Dexter had Zach in the front seat. And then of course there's the scene where Zach's in the back seat, and then Hannah's in the shotgun and Dexter's in front, and the whole "are we there yet?" You know, they had to pull that gag on us. But you know, Harry always has a really interesting presence, especially this season, because he's always coming in when Dexter's emotions are getting the better of him, which they have been doing quite a bit lately, and to quite a far extent. And so, you know, he's there kind of like, you know, reminding Dexter of where he came from, you know, as far as like Harry raising up Dexter in the code, and Dexter trying to figure out, you know, how can I sustain this with Zach? What's gonna go on from here? And then he's always there to be like, that Hannah McKay girl, WTF are you doing, son? And, you know, Dexter just kind of brushes it off. And I think that's the manifestation of the part of his subconscious that's like, what is actually going on, you know, with all this feeling and this incredible lust for experience with other humans, not in a way that is killing them, in a way that is actually bonding, sexually, physically, and emotionally, all those other vortexes to which he was once so blissfully blind, and I do miss that, but yeah, so it definitely felt very strange for me. And of course, going back to what I was saying about Deborah and Hannah, again, like everything just kind of collided in this episode as well. And I think that was the writers' kind of act of tying things in together. The last few episodes felt a little more nebulous and just kind of off the cuff and like, where is all this going, you know? And so I think we get a little bit more of a sense of endgame here, especially with the brain surgeon coming back. But at any rate, Deborah corners Hannah in the room, and they have like their kind of mini showdown, and all of a sudden Hannah takes it to a really like philosophical level to try and talk Deborah down from this. And what's really heartbreaking about that scene for me was that I felt that a thread between Dexter and Deborah was snapped in that moment, you know, where Hannah's like, I totally could have killed you, but I love your brother too much. It was also really weird because all this, like, the lovey-dovey stuff with Hannah and Dexter just sort of came about, like, there wasn't a ton of discussion. It was just kind of like, oh, all the feelings are there, by the way. It was like as if nothing had changed from, like, around the same time last season. And I don't know if I keep saying this, I don't know if I was the only one who noticed this. This is really me just kind of feel out, like, I'm trying to feel out where you guys are at with this episode, because I just felt so lost and confused so much of the time. But yeah, so Hannah's trying to pull that, like, hey, you know, we both love the same person. But for Deborah, you know, she said something, you know, like, Dexter always ruins everything. And so whereas Hannah was trying to connect with Deborah on the level of, hey, we love the same person, like, can't we all just get along, you know? Like, for Deborah, it really wasn't in that same vein. It wasn't like, hey, we love the same person. It was like, hey, the same person is driving us, you know? And for Deborah, it's in a negative way, again, which really freaking sucks. And so she leaves, and she's just putting her hands up in the air again and just saying, I need out of your personal details, Dexter. I can't ingest this. I can't be present in what's becoming your reality because it's too much. So she heads back, you know, to Elway, and, you know, it kind of, she doesn't really know it at the time, but she's saying her goodbyes. It's time for her to peace out from this place, you know, that's been, you know, originally it was attached to her self-punishment for what she did to LaGuerta, you know, going to work as a PI, stepping down from her place as a cop, you know, and it just really symbolizes kind of her place of compromise. And so her decision to go back onto the force at Miami Metro, you know, something that was alluded to by Batista and Quinn and everybody at the crime scene where Cassie had died. You know, she's starting to realize that she can't lean on her brother the way that she was starting to again. And so she's returning to her position as a cop to find some place of stability and identity and self. Because trying to find that in Dexter, she's only going to find more Hannah McKay. And what that spells out for her is a lot of pain and bitterness. So she's gonna try and go back to what she's good at, what makes her feel like herself, because with Hannah present in Dexter's life, she feels estranged from him, and she loses that sense of self. It's a broken mirror that she's looking into because she can't share Hannah in the same way that Dexter has. And so she needs to remove herself from that. That's kind of how I see this. And so in a sense, I'm glad that she's doing something for herself and that she is letting go of Dexter right now, because as incredibly important as their dynamic has been to me, and it freaking drove the entire season until Hannah's reemergence, you know, I want her to be happy. I don't think that this move back to Miami Metro is going to necessarily grant her joy and peace. In fact, I think it's, you know, part of the end game, again, which is inevitably going to be filled with tragedy. But honestly, I'm just kind of like, girl, do your thing, because it's just painful to see her and Dexter at odds again. But at the same time, I'm trying to figure out, you know, would I prefer to see them fighting or aloof and back in their own spheres again, you know? It's like, some say the world will end in fire and some say in ice. And I think that ice is the worst way and the slowest. And so I just pray that this doesn't turn into a Cold War between them. But it doesn't seem that the intimacy between Dexter and Deborah that was so important before, it doesn't feel like it's at the forefront. Which is why it feels like we're in a totally different season. Because Deborah, where she was originally finding herself again, she has to move on from that place. And I guess it could be argued that, you know, it's seen as a step in the healing process. You know, she's willing to accept what she's done and kind of looking at, like, like what Hannah said, like where does good or bad come into the equation anymore? I don't know, but it's just really difficult. So before I talk a little more about Dexter and Hannah and all that jazz, let's talk about Quinn, okay? And I'm going to speak about his role in the preview for next week. I believe that he killed Cassie, you know? I think that they were kind of like trying to tease out like all those little scenes between him and Batista about moving up and advancing, and Jamie kind of putting the pressure on him, and him finally putting the pressure on himself, realizing, you know, it's like, it's about damn time I find something to live for. Suddenly it's taken away from him, and Zach is, you know, it's gonna be his gateway to moving up in the department, which is now his dream and, you know, a place of meaning for him. So it's, you know, getting the blood from under Zach's door and tucking it under the fingernails, all that jazz. Like when he asks Dexter to look out for any evidence at the crime scene, I believe that he knows that he's planted it. I mean, it seems quite a far step from the dirty cop who moves evidence and takes bribes to a murder. But at the same time, like, you know, I thought it was gonna be, you know, like little Mr. Ryan Gosling who is all tangled up in this, but at the same time, it's like, why bring in another new face at this point in the game? You know, there's just not room. And I was kind of looking for the creep factor from him, but he just kind of seemed like an average guy. So I think, you know, we had all the little scenes with Quinn, and it's very subtle, but I think it all points to him being our guy. And I don't know how I feel about that, like, because it feels so sudden, and yet I can see how the writers might be constructing that. So Quinn's been a dirty, dirty boy. I don't think he's the brain surgeon. May the records show. I don't think that Elway's the brain surgeon. A lot of people have been saying that from the beginning, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't have that kind of scoop on Dexter or Vogel. You know, Deborah did a pretty good job at keeping him at bay from her personal life, as she's trying to hold that in herself and just keep the messiness of her life from getting any further out. Anyways, so freaking Quinn and freaking Jamie. I love the scene with Quinn and Harrison where it's like, my name is Harrison, and Quinn's like, and a fine name it is. But I just feel so weird now because I was starting to like Quinn this season, and now I'm just kind of like, I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, just this creeping knowledge of Quinn, you know, emerging as a killer. Like I could totally, I don't know at what point it started to gnaw at me, but I could feel that, you know, that voice whispering in my head that somebody, like, it was not the Ryan Gosling guy. And, you know, little puppy Zach Hamilton, he's bouncing all over the freaking walls. Like, I mean, I think it's Quinn. I do. And I don't know how I feel about it. It makes me feel all messed up and crazy inside, and I kind of like that. You know, it's finally something's being done with Quinn. I guess that he gets to be the bad guy this time. So what do you guys think about that madness? And of course, you know, Masuka's daughter comes into the office and tries to remove all the bad and murder juju. I love Matthew's little statement about that. He always gets these little one-liners. He always delivers them just so perfectly. But at any rate, it's time to get back to the elephant in the room, that is the Dexter and Hannah scenario. So I'm going to confess something to you guys, okay? In order to explain the way that I feel about Hannah as a character. And I just want to say that you guys can feel as free to disagree with me as you can feel free to walk around your house with no underwear on. Like, literally, every opinion, provided that it is given in a respectful way, is totally valid. If you like her, have at it. She's yours, my friend. But I shall not partake. And here's the thing. So, everyone loves cheese, right? As it turns out, I, being the spawn of Satan that I am, actually don't really like cheese. Like, I eat pizza, I eat mac and cheese, and freaking goldfish. I mean, there's a certain amount of cheese that I will eat, like if it's just there and it has to be done. But I don't like cheese. It makes me feel ill inside, and I wish that I liked cheese because it would make my life so much easier to enjoy, you know? And it's kind of the same way that I feel about Hannah McKay. I want to like her, but for me personally, I feel that she has been forced upon me, and just, I don't know, the chemistry between her and Dexter doesn't resonate with me, and I wish that I liked it. I wish that I liked her. It would be easier, and because I want to be enjoying the hell out of this last season, but it's just, Hannah's like a big fat piece of super strong, intense cheese that I cannot ingest. I mean, does that make any sense? Like, oh, and I was very, there were several people who really persecuted me on my last vlog for being a Hannah bitch ass hater, but honestly, she just does not tickle my fancy, and I don't like the circumstances of her return or what it's done to Dexter and Deborah's relationship. It's just, but more specifically, I don't like what she's done to Dexter, because Dexter goes into complete non-thinking mode. We've seen the cool, analytical, calculating, snarky, sharp, funny, zesty Dexter of days gone by, and that seems to just completely dissipate before Hannah. Like, I mean, they're just a hop, skip, and a little boat ride away from dancing through the fields of flowers and throwing them up into the air and blowing bubbles. I mean, it just feels really thick to me, and I honestly just, I'm trying to say this in a way that respects the Hannah fans, because I get there's some people that like her, but I don't like what she renders Dexter, to be entirely honest with you. And just all of a sudden, he is just head over heels for her, no questions asked. Like, he's trying to rush her out of the country, and then all of a sudden they're doing it again. And it just, like, I don't care for it, and it just seems so strange that suddenly, the intensity and the desperation that was experienced when Deborah was in complete and total turmoil is just, is water under the bridge. It's not Dexter consciously thinking Deborah is safe, okay, Deborah is safe, and looking for that. Like, he's not thinking at all is the problem. It'd be one thing if Deborah was taken deeply into consideration in the situation, but the fact of the matter is that she isn't even in the equation, which just makes the season I feel like the direction is totally shifted. And that's okay, I mean, that's the way that the story goes sometimes, but that just doesn't meet me right. And I'm biting my tongue here, because I was trying to jive with it, but like, it just had such a fluffy sitcom romantic just ush and gush to it that I couldn't stomach it. And that's just me. And now I'll speak in specific about the preview for next week. All of a sudden Dexter's like, okay, once I get the brain surgeon out of the way, I'll focus on my life with Hannah. It's like, so is this what he's resolved to? I mean, and everyone has their different idea of what they want things to look like for Dexter. And for me personally, I like the dark side. Like, he doesn't feel as much like a serial killer right now, and it's really estranging for me. Yeah, it just feels really strange and off to me, and I guess it's not exactly what I was hoping for or anticipating at this point in the season. And I mean, it's fine to be surprised. I can totally embrace that. And I get it, you know, it's not good to like walk into a season with a preconceived idea of how things are gonna go, but at the same time, to see the Dexter and Deborah dynamic sidelined like this, it just really stings for me. But I mean, even more importantly, and it's not about a romance between Dexter or Deborah either, like, oh, choose between Deborah and Hannah. It's not even about that for me. It's just about Dexter seeing Dexter exploring his killer side more directly. And you know, there's all these character dynamics going on, and the Hannah one just kind of distracts from what I feel is the fundamental core and what is really exciting and engaging to me, like, you know, the brain surgeon ordeal and all that. It's like that is what is drawing me in, whereas I'm really being turned off by the whole Dexter and Hannah situation. It's just hard because it's like I feel that the end game should most directly implicate the people who have been in this all along, and Hannah is still a newer figure to me, and you know, she just kind of feels forced in a sense. Yeah, I don't like the way that Dexter acts around her. Suddenly everything is off and it's all about sex and it's all about feeling and just what is immediately, you know, in his sensory experience, and that's just not the Dexter I know. And that's what it comes down to for me. There's much more that I could say, and I want to, you know, respect the other Hannah fans out there. It's totally fine if you don't feel me on this. I mean, we can completely agree to disagree. I just can't really buy into their dynamic. It's not something that I like, and I just hope that it's not going to be, you know, continue to be milked in just this really fluffy romantic way. Like, I want there to be some sense of peril and not just kind of this nebulous infatuation, you know, that's all of a sudden they're totally in love. It's as if Deborah never almost died and Dexter lost her. It's like that's completely buried, and not even like water under the bridge is taken care of, resolved. Like, it feels like it just kind of tapered off into nowhere and is just forgotten, and I don't like it. It just doesn't feel intentional or sincere to me. So that's my take. But so I have to pose a few questions about the preview for next week. In light of my theory about Quinn, you know, him laying the Mac down on Deborah's face, giving her a smooch, like, what the heck? I mean, honestly, it really seems to me to kind of solidify my theory. You know, he's kind of going off the cuff with Jamie. I don't even know if she's in the picture, but it's like he's trying to be manipulative to people within the department so that, you know, suspicions will be kept away from him. That's kind of the way that I saw it. So as much as I want to be like, oh, you know, because the Dexter and Quinn dynamic at the beginning was pretty cool, but it's just like, oh, this is very uncomfortable and disconcerting to me now. And furthermore, yeah, so Deborah's going back on the force. I'm happy for her in that. There's lots of shenanigans going down, and Dexter and Hannah, you know, their basic end game just looks like, you know, they're trying to find this happiness or whatever, and I don't know what's to become of that in light of the brain surgeon thing, and I hope that things definitely, you know, that we get that crazy end game peril, because that will keep me sated and satisfied for a time. But yeah, so that's just kind of how I'm feeling about things. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, feel free to disagree, just keep it respectful. I'm respecting you. You know, I voiced my opinions. No, I don't like her, and I wish I did, but I don't. But I'm more than happy to hear, you know, why you like her and, you know, how she kind of correlates with Dexter's journey in humanity. I totally get that, you know. I'm willing to stick it out for this show. It's my favorite, and I don't want to give up on it yet. So as much as I am disappointed in different respects, I'm keeping my hopes up and staying engaged till the bitter end. So thank you guys so much. I'll be back in a jiff and responding to your comments whenever I can. So take care, y'all. This beast is freaking long. I'm starting school tomorrow. What am I doing with my life? So thank you guys for being wonderful. And I'll chat with you real soon. Take care.